In 2009, he founded, I don't know if it's pronounced Gov or GOV 2.0 Radio, and became the first person to use Twitter to announce a run for U.S. Congress, a milestone that got him more Twitter followers than votes. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. My name is Adriel Hampton. I usually speak at events that are more similar to mainstream tech events. So when I read Rachel's descriptions for this event, I figured I should just write something really kind of crazy and manic. And I forgot that they were actually recording. And they're apparently putting these on YouTube. So, but I'll go for it anyway. So most of my talks revolve around personal stories. I think personal stories are what connect us as human beings. I think they're what will take us into the future. So I'm going to try to string enough of them together to make some kind of sense for an audience and advertise topic here that is agitating, that's anti-tech, that's trying to do basically say to $600 a day conferences, fuck you. So a few weeks ago, I was actually hosting planning meetings for this event with Rachel at my really sweet tech office. I had a huge monitor on the wall. We put the Google Hangouts up there with remote participants, nice couches, air-on chairs. I was the first employee at this company. I was an owner almost, except that stock options aren't ownership. I also have a 3-minute version of this talk. It was really honed down, really tight for Series B investor pitches. We got the Series B. The version you're getting now is longer, thank you. It also has more desperation, despair, sex, and Uber bashing. I think that it'll fit the time. I use one of those tools where you calculate your word count and see how many minutes it's going to take. So I used the past tense in talking about my meetings with Rachel, because 3 weeks ago I was laid off along with 40 other colleagues. It's like more people than there are in this room today. My new team that had been formed just 6 weeks before was cut in half. A Toronto office that had launched a month before and had hundreds of folks from the Toronto tech scene in attendance. That office was just gone. It was one of the happier days of my life. So let's talk about the air-on chairs for a minute. Every time a tech company lays off a bunch of people, Herman Miller is in the photos, because those chairs, they're really nice. They form against your body. But there's a whole lot of them left when you lay off 40 people or 600 people at a time. BlackBerry's been doing for a long time. So there's chairs all over the place at the old office, lots of them empty. Huge monitors, those big Thunderbolt Apple monitors that make your tech startup look really hot, look really wealthy. The huge open office that's designed to hold more people than your tech company has, because it's all about the amount of people you hope to have in the lifetime of a 10-year lease, that's even emptier now. Seas of cubicles. So just like these guys, it's really hard to follow an act where somebody sticks a magnet in their finger after scalpeling it open, I'll say. Just like they said, don't use super glue, use sutures. There's an interesting thing about open offices. The reason you have to have cubicles, as studied by generations of mindless office drones over the past decades, The problem with an open office is that sound carries, and most of the people in your office are actually there to make phone calls to other people to get them to try to buy something that you're selling. And when two of those people are next to each other trying to make someone buy what they're selling, and that person can hear the other person, it doesn't work. So offices have cubicles. And chairs. They're pricey. Yeah, they cost about $600. I haven't bought one for my home office. But you know, if you're paying someone $55,000 to $90,000 to sit in a chair all day and make phone calls, $600 for that chair is a pretty reasonable price. Because all the fancy stuff left when growth goes bad, those are to keep the expensive people happy. Big offices are expensive too. Thunderbolt, standing desks, kitchens, those aren't what gets cut. So the mic is going in and out, huh?
Check the line.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I am definitely... The ringing is from his magnet, I think. No, it's people. It's headcount. It's you, me, our friends who get cut when this happens. So, but I'm supposed to tell you why April 10th was a great day for me. You know how they say that alcoholics aren't ready to change until they hit rock bottom? The rock bottom, it's different for everybody. It's never very pretty. So I'm talking to you about the anatomy of my tech breakdown. The layoffs weren't even my bottom. I think that came sometime a week later when I was at a party with a bunch of laid-off coworkers, and I jumped in the pool with my phone. It was supposed to be a waterproof phone, but it wasn't. So for 2 weeks, no phone, no Twitter, no Facebook notifications, no Instagram, no emails from morning to night. No text from my dad, 2 weeks. That was pretty grounding. I hope that was the bottom. But let me go back further, the way I do it for the VCs. So when I was really young, like 7, I used to love to read. I read the Chronicles of Narnia maybe several times over, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion even. And naturally, that love for reading progressed into an original career as a journalist. I became a city hall and politics reporter for the San Francisco Examiner. And one of the things I did there was I launched the paper's first blog. It was called The Body Politic. And one of the things I quickly realized in working City Hall in San Francisco was a very small number of people who made everything happen in the city. It was lobbyists for the developers, it was the elected officials, it was tenant activists. There weren't that many of them, and they were making a lot of things happen in a big city. And I quickly realized that I didn't want to just tell stories, I wanted to be part of making them happen. Now this part really gets the VCs, because VCs who aren't founders, they secretly want to be founders, and VCs who've been founders, they miss the adrenaline of being founders. There's so much more excitement in spending other people's money to fuel your dream than just spending other people's money to fuel other people's dreams. So I left the paper and I went to work for the San Francisco City Attorney. And what that allowed me to do was get politically active. And the first thing I did, there was a library that was being built in the city of Walnut Creek where I lived. And the library was an exciting project. I had a 2-year-old son. I figured by the time that library was finished, we could walk over together, read some books, spend some time over there. It was going to be a beautiful place. But then I realized that the library project also had a mega parking garage attached, and they were going to bulldoze the home of the woman who lived behind the library for using eminent domain or forcing her off her property in order to build this giant parking garage. So I got upset, and I did the one thing I knew how to do well. I got online. I started a blog called SaveCivicPark.com, and we beat the library bond, saved the woman's house. Now, VCs like this part of the story too, because it sounds a little bit right-wing to fight eminent domain and stop a library project. The library did get built, but VCs are pretty right-wing. You know, they want to do things like build islands far enough off the coast so they don't have to obey terrestrial law, and they can just take all their money and do whatever they want. So library. After beating the library bond, I got a big head, and the next thing I did was run for Congress. U.S. Congress. People would ask, so which Congress? There is only one, but yeah, and they would say, are those bumper stickers? Oh, you had these gag bumper stickers made. I said, no, I'm running for Congress. This was 2009. I announced my run for Congress via Twitter. Got a lot of earned media for doing that, but ultimately more Twitter followers than votes. But I met the founder of this last company to employ me, the company that laid me off a few weeks ago, while I was running for Congress. I used a really early version of his tech, and that part I don't say to the investors. I thought I needed something like his tech if a guy like me was going to try to run for Congress. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But someone who had basically beat a library bond, and that was their only claim to political fame. And he needed someone who was crazy enough to try to talk to 200,000 people without knowing what they were doing, which is kind of what you do when you go work for a tech startup. You're trying to tell the whole world that everyth's going to be good, that this product is real, it's great, you need it, and have that faith within yourself to do it. So, and that story isn't exactly true. It's not a lie either. It just doesn't have important details. It crunches the timeline really conveniently. It's not really a human story, it's a VC pitch. Story, pitch, they're two really different things. Human story, that's what I was doing when I wrote blog posts and letters to the editor about Elizabeth Height, the woman who was a third-generation owner of the house that the city of Walnut Creek wanted to ship off in a trailer if they couldn't bulldoze it instead. Human story, it's why I ran for Congress right after the banking crisis and subsequent Federal Reserve bailout deal, reciting Mario Savio in the car, and sometimes to some poor Democrat I'd corner at an event. There comes a time when the operation of the machine grows so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you cannot take part. You cannot even passively take part. And you must put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels and upon the levers, and you must make it stop. And you must indicate to those who operate it, and to those who own it, and to those who run it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from operating at all. But human stories growing up on welfare after your parents lost everything in a bid to become Bible translators in Papua New Guinea. Human stories, one of your congressional opponents joining the contest after he was kicked out of the army following 2 tours in Iraq because he loved a man and wouldn't be quiet about it. Human stories shaking hands and handing flyers to 10,000 people in 5 months, talking to hundreds of them, telling them I'm running because I can't, in good conscience, look what's going on in our society and not try to do something about it. It's putting your body upon the gears and upon the wheels. But that's too serious. It's too grandiose. Running for Congress, quoting Savio with that voice. Was I a madman? Am I a madman? My professional bio seems to say no. I almost wore my glasses today. I figured maybe you look a little bit less insane if you wear glasses. You don't look insane at all with the glasses. You do maybe with the shades. Yeah. I wasn't going to wear the shades. So I want to talk about personas for a minute. We all have these masks that we wear in different social situations, right? You go to work with one of those masks. You go with your lover. You might act a little bit differently. With friends, maybe it's someone you're dating. You haven't figured out how to act around them yet, and so you're wearing this different mask. And maybe we even think that we've rejected those masks, but then there's subconscious ones that come out when we don't even want them to. The ones we don't want to wear but wear anyway. The ones we don't think we're wearing but they're there. And they're not even masks. These are all personalities that we're all trying to herd into some coherent sense of self. Mine thought that running for Congress was a way to express the pain in my heart. The pain of childhood, the pain of peers who make fun of welfare kids, or of fat kids with long bangs and indeterminate gender, anonymous Christmas presents, holiday food lines, a childhood and adolescence poisoned by restricted religion, college years full of acid and pot, followed by conversion to an even more extreme religion, married at 20 years old, clerical coworkers who lived for their smoke breaks and died just before or just after retirement, attorneys and investigators and cops who knew not to the year or to the month, but to the day and the hour when they'd be able to start collecting their retirement pensions. Just trying to herd it all into something coherent. Everybody's got a psychology. So running for Congress didn't work, and 2 years later I was taking a flyer on a tech startup. Its mission was my mission. Grow fast, grow fast, grow fast. Escape business realities by taking lots of money from dudes in Silicon Valley who got it from the richest of the rich and from teacher pension funds. But hey, teachers, this is the dream. You get the dream. You read a bunch of articles on Fred Wilson's blog and Hacker News and Mashable, and you calculate story after story about the future of your options and what's going to happen when you make it big. Engineers can look at startups the same way a woman who wants to have kids looks at romantic partners. 4 years in this relationship, I can only do 4 or 5 of those in my peak years. I got to find the right one. I got to make it before my working clock runs out, before you're 36 and at the top of a fast-growing startup, and it hits that bump and lets you go. But happy. This is supposed to be a story about a happy day. So my first year at the startup, I just killed it. I was working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, sometimes 16 hours. I gained a lot of weight. I moved from my computer only to walk out of my home office to have a quick meal with my family. Then we got more VC funding, and we needed to have a real office. My wife and I had bought a home near the train station that took me into my work at the city job. When it got to the point where I'd get off the train, and any time the opposite platform was full, I wanted to just get back on the train and go home. Cognitive therapy, SRIs. So I took a flyer. I went to that tech startup. I moved to Los Angeles, bringing my family 3 years later. 14 years of living like this, plus Los Angeles, had destroyed me. Even fatter, whiskey to sleep, video games to quiet the anxiety in my head, Series B funding, working on the parts of the company that needed attention but weren't getting it, out there bleeding for the bleeding edge, emails all night, emails in the morning, body on the gears, on the levers. I fell in love with a masseuse. Coming back to life started with my body, and it was all about losing. Lost 50 pounds in 6 months, lost my wife overnight, lost my kids back to her hometown in Tokyo 3 months later, lost another 20 pounds, lost lover after lover in a summer just as wild as the summer of acid and concerts back in college before my 15-year marriage. Women a dozen years younger, women old enough for my divorced dad to date. Lost my memory to alcohol like clockwork once a month. Still at the standing desk, Tinder, Aeron chairs, MacBook Pro, emails on the phone, retweeting the company line, therapy, yoga, meditation, breathwork, hypnotherapy, more meditation. Missed opportunities at love so devastating they finally lead to a bottom. Saying to a coworker, you know, it's like I'm having a spiritual awakening and a nervous breakdown at the same time. That's usually how it happens, she said. They say that there's a saying about a yogi and a psychotic. They're both experiencing the same subconscious sea of rival intelligences inside the self, but the yogi is swimming and the psychotic is drowning. And there's a big difference between swimming and drowning. My bottom was realizing that everything we require for salvation, everything we require for safety and happiness lives inside ourselves. It's a realization that makes a layoff simply the end of a tech breakdown. Losing the Aeron chair and the cell phone, walking on the beach and not looking for notifications, allowing the emotion of a mass layoff to pour through and wash you. Tech is not a savior. IPOs are not a savior. Political office isn't a savior. But yes, we are the ones we're waiting for. So dissent, antagonism, that's what we're doing today. And are we mad because people with these great tech jobs look happy? I mean, hell, what's an entrepreneur but a guy who doesn't got a job? Now, I'm a pretty happy guy these days. I'm not yelling the Mario Savio quotes. I listen to a lot less Rage Against the Machine. Well, maybe several minutes ago I was in that place. But what's next? What's now? We're in a tech utopia, right? Soylent in every pot, an Uber in every garage, legal pot for every liberal state, somatic bliss. But I am mad. I'm mad that the human story is being turned into a dream, and it's being done by other humans. What's happening with tech? It's the government recording and storage of every electronic message. It's Facebook feeds so compelling they can play our moods better than a sunset. I woke up this morning told my girlfriend about something I saw on Facebook. She opened her Facebook, it showed her the same thing. It's a society with wealth stratification that some future society will look back on like we look at the age of the pharaohs. It's not wall-sized TV screens that do us in, it's the ones in our hands. I like the magnets, though. Artificial intelligence isn't what we need to worry about. You hear about Elon Musk investing in artificial intelligence companies so he knows what's next, what's coming. The issue is, if the tech is any smarter than us, it's likely to be a hell of a lot more benevolent. Even in that Haley Joel Osment movie, it's not homeless robots that suffer, it's homeless robots that humans torture that suffer. It's bots. Bots are the enemy. And it's not because they're tech, it's because humans can be awful. And then humans have the bots. If you watch Uber drivers, they're practically tapped into the matrix now. I know, robots control the matrix, but this is worse because we're doing it to ourselves. We're cannibalizing labor for greater and greater returns for the richest of the rich. Without the Uber app, those drivers don't know where they're going. I went to a Christmas party, and everyone was being dropped off half a block away from the house because that's where the Uber told them to go, told the drivers where to go. Hell, without our GPS, do we even know where we're going anymore? I've got these little scraps of paper where I write down directions now that I'm not using the GPS on my phone as often. And it makes me think like, oh wow, I have to orient myself towards buildings or towards directions, and I actually have to think about space and time. I don't know exactly where I'm going to get somewhere because it's not telling me the exact minute that I'm going to arrive there on my phone. So when you go home, I encourage you to read this novella called Manna by Marshall Brain, if you haven't read it already. If you've read it, it's a good time to reread it, I think. If you want to earn poverty wages, actually, let me talk about Manna for a second. I think I have a little bit of time. So Manna's this story about a tech utopia and a tech dystopia, where this machine called Manna, this just a simple artificial intelligence, much like the algorithms for Uber and Godview, is in headsets of every employee at a minimum wage job. And what it's doing is it's directing them exactly what to do, how long, when their break starts, 2 minutes before your break ends. When you're scrubbing a bathroom floor, it's telling you that other workers at a similar business down the street can do it in 6 minutes, and you're taking up too much time, you're only half done, and you're at 4 minutes. And then at the end of the day, if you can't keep up, if you're not an average or better than average minimum wage worker, the system everywhere throughout the internet knows, and you can't get a job anymore, and you go live in a welfare camp. There's an opposite dream. This book was written in 2003. It's free on the internet. Really good to read, because if we think that these kind of tech dystopias are true, or are far-fetched, or they're not going to happen, or they're not already happening, try driving an Uber and letting your stars go down past that 5-star ranking. And they know where you've been. They've got Godview. They know what time you left your friend's apartment next day, where you are, where you've been, who you're with. And they've got the money to destroy anyone who gets in their way. Give us a few years and all those drivers are gone, and the bots are driving the cars too. Our jobs are gone, we just don't know it already. Or since this isn't TED, we probably do know it. So what's the answer? The answer's in you. The answer's in the human story. It's in the happiness that can transcend a bleak night. Or maybe it's in some kind of biohacking that allows you to see in the night. I don't know. It's the joy of a breath, a smile, a droning chord. It's in your eyes, your hearts. And bots, we can use them too. I believe the next speaker is going to be addressing some of the ways we can actually take back our future. And I just want to close by saying, be human, don't be an Uber.